California, here I come, right back where I started from. Where flowers bloom in the sun. Everybody got birds are singing, everything the sun kissed me said, don't be late. That's why I can hardly wait. Open up that golden gate, California, here I come.
All right, everyone. It's Huell's Gold, episode 21. I'm Chris, and I'm here with Master Allan.
Yeah. That's me.
Allan is a master now. He won a master. He won a master's tournament.
Oh, yeah. I entered the competition.
Yeah.
No, I just entered a drawing.
Yeah. A drawing of a bunch of words. Thousands and thousands of words. In other words, it's Huell's Gold, and like you heard last week, we are in one of our favorite places this week. Good old Kern County.
For at least one city.
Yeah.
We're bordering Kern County with the other city.
I didn't even know that our first destination wasn't in Kern County.
Until you saw the sign?
Until I saw, yeah. Whoops. But let's just get to it. No screwing around. Let's just do it. Huell, tell us where we are this week.
Come on, Huell. Just really, let's do it.
Yeah.
To get to our first destination, we drove through some of the flattest, most deserted landscape I've ever seen. But that's where the town of Allensworth is located, about 30 miles north of Bakersfield off Highway 99 in Tulare County. Now, at first I thought we'd made a wrong turn because there was literally nothing to see but open space. But then we saw the sign, turned and crossed over the railroad tracks, and we had arrived at one of the most historic towns in our state. It all started back in 1908 when Colonel Allan Allensworth, who was the highest-ranking black military officer of his day, founded this town, the state's first town settled and governed entirely by blacks. The founders hoped to create a place where blacks could own property and otherwise achieve their full economic potential, free from discrimination. The new town grew rapidly as black men and women bought town lots, started farms, and built homes for their families. A school was built, along with a church and a library and a post office. It was a thriving community, and its future looked bright. Then, in 1914, Colonel Allensworth was killed in a tragic accident, and about the same time, the critical water supply began to give out. During the 1920s and 30s, the town began to lose population and literally began to disintegrate. In fact, most of the town had disappeared by 1976 when the site was declared a state historic park as a monument to its black pioneers. Today, Allensworth is in the process of being restored. Several of the original buildings look like they once did, and more is to come. We pulled into Allensworth for what they call the Old Time Jubilee, which is an event held every year to celebrate what the town is all about. A fun day, a family day, a day set aside to honor those early black pioneers who had such big dreams.
All right. Well, that was a pretty long clip.
Let's do the thing we always do. Have you been here?
I have not been here. Have you been here?
I have been here.
Yeah. And there's a funny story with this. I think it's funny anyway.
How about you tell it?
I'll tell it how I remember and then just interject if I mess anything up.
Okay.
So you tell me one day, years ago, well, this is a long time ago.
Yeah. It's when I first got the Miata.
Okay. Yeah. So we're back from Sebastopol. You have the Miata. And you say, hey, I'm going to have to go up to Allensworth State Park with my dad. We're putting in a bid. And none of these things made sense to me at the time. I had no idea what Allensworth was. I didn't know you worked in a job because you worked at Wavelengths.
Yeah. You know, this was definitely side work, as they call it in the industry.
Yeah. So you and your dad were going up to put in a bid on behalf of
just the paving company. But
yeah.
When you go up there, when you do a bid, you have to be present.
Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't matter the job. And first it needed to be a body,
Yeah.
which was me,
Yeah.
right? Then my dad said, no, we'll go, because he was a foreman down there. And he was going to show me the ropes in case I ever did it for them again. So, yeah.
And it was a really professional situation, right? Like there was an area for you to write down the bid on a piece of paper.
Absolutely not. See, what ended up happening was, well, we did the walk, which is really funny because it was for just a tiny, the smallest bit to be, sealed or whatever.
Just
And
like the road, you're going to repave or reseal the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like I said, I'm a noob, right? I have no idea what's going on. My dad's not, so I don't understand why this happened. But he forgot to bring a clipboard.
Yeah. Well, why would you need one? When you got a perfectly good son's back to write.
That's right. That's right. Well, it ended up me writing on his back.
Oh, because he was showing you the ropes.
Yeah, well, and he doesn't have the best handwriting.
Okay.
Well, he does, but, on the spot, probably not. It's not on a hard table.
Yeah, okay.
I think he trusted me more. But yeah, so I just wrote it down on his back, submitted it. That was it.
Did you get the job?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're part of the history of this place.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, there was a lot of history to this. Allensworth, huh? Sounds like something someone would call you if you won the lottery and they were making fun of you. Like, oh, Mr. Allensworth over here. Thinking he's all cool with his new Dodge Ram truck.
Oh, this is a Viper. Something
What would you-
cool.
Yeah, Dodge Viper. That's a good won the lottery car.
Yeah.
But kind of break down Allensworth as a town, like the idea behind it.
Well, as one interviewee describes it, it was a place for African Americans to get away, to get some peace and quiet. I mean, when I was out there, listen, if you don't know the history of it, it is just a smattering of buildings.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
It kind of gives that impression as far as the shots that Louis is getting on this episode, but
Right, and anyone, well, and I know that was a very brief description of what they were trying to do, but that's the core behind what they were trying to do, get away, kind of build up the community, and it seems like education was the primary goal of the town. But when anyone can camp out there as well. I don't know if you...
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can camp.
Well, we'll get to hearing about someone doing some camping here in a second. First off, you hear the theme this week, which is another kind of amateur chorus. But before that even happens, we see a preview of where we're going to end up.
Right, but, well, it's the first time I've ever seen Huell armed.
Yeah, he's got two giant guns ablazing because he's wearing just a life vest with a small tank top, and he's just...
Dude, his arms are raging.
He's on fire.
Yeah.
He's as roaring as the roaring Kern behind him because he's in the Kern Canyon. It looks like with the roaring river behind him.
It's and maybe we're just partial.
Oh yeah,
because we love the Kern River,
Yeah,
but it's the coolest shot of him so far.
by far. I think so.
So far.
And then we get to the theme this week, which is a group of looks like just Allensworth State Park patrons who got the lyrics on a piece of paper, probably brought to them by Huell.
And I'm guessing some of these people have never heard the song.
No, because
Just like, how does it go? I think I know.
you can hear some people singing the melody, and then other people are just, California, here I come.
And you get the guys in the background jumping up and down.
Yeah,
The
hype crew
hype.
back there. But it's the more important thing is we have the side-scrolling the title again. But these shirts, these Allensworth shirts,
Dude, they are cool.
yeah, they were obviously like the commemorative shirt of the event here. And
We need to get one.
you think like
You probably can't. You're gonna have
Yeah.
to just remake these
yeah, but
on your own time. But
it's so. What is this event that we got going here?
this is the Old Time Jubilee.
That's right. And it's just kind of like a celebration of the park to like kind of get the word out on them and tell the history of the place.
Right. Yep.
'Cause like I said, I hadn't heard of Allensworth State Park till you were going to do this bid.
And I do wonder why. I mean, maybe because it's not Kern County, but it's still an important, landmark. So I don't know. It's a good.
I remember talking to people from Delano, and they had heard of it.
Right.
And that's kind of more. It's really close to them. But I was doing some additional Allensworth research, and in the clip you hear that he was tragically killed.
Yeah.
And did I tell you what happened?
No.
Okay. Apparently he was hit by a motorcycle while crossing a street. And like,
how big was the motorcycle?
Right? Like that it seems like it would be a
that just sounds like it would be such a gory scene.
Yeah. Well, that's why Huell calls it tragic.
Yeah, no, it
which
is.
It very much was. But
what year was? I mean, around what time was this? Do you remember?
The 70s, I think. I think.
So it was okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, hold on. Let me just look it up. Let me not spout off facts. Hold on. Okay, we're back, and I guess it's a good thing.
A few decades off.
He died in 1914. But it was the town. If you remember in the clips, Huell said that the town was dying or dead.
Right.
By the time,
and he was the town.
Yeah.
So I totally get it.
By the time that it had become a state park. So there's my confusion, which makes sense. But
well, the first interviewee here.
Yes.
Got a question for you.
Okay.
Do you think she is recording her?
Dude, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, because she's just excited as can be. She's got a brand new Allensworth hat, still with the tag on it, holding her camcorder.
And what if that's just in her grandson's closet, just sitting there with this tape?
That alternate vantage point of that?
Oh, man.
Well, after her, Huell comes and meets about, 10 ladies on horseback?
Yep.
And did you notice anything about... Because he, talks to one, and then he's like, oh, this is the lady in charge.
Right, he says the head cowgirl.
Yeah.
And, dude, she is signaling that for sure with that belt buckle.
This thing's 8 inches tall, 9 inches wide.
It's so big.
It's giant.
It's just like a focal point.
Yeah. Much like last week's half zipper situation. But this is different. But
this is proper attire.
Yeah. Huell's just making the rounds of everyone. He goes and finds a couple other ladies, one of which is wearing a fanny pack with a skirt, which you don't see very often.
No, it's a very rare combination.
Yeah, I think it's a really good look because it's almost like keeping her shirt from flying up in this wind. It's like maybe she just thought it was a belt.
You know what? That's awesome.
But this whole thing, what was funny about that?
Well, the first thing that was funny is he'll try to ask some clarifying questions or just, informational questions about the place. And these ladies, they didn't really know much because they were reading.
They were in the middle of reading the information because they had just got there.
Right? And she just says, well, it's a general store.
Yeah.
He's, oh, you don't know. But then she kind of, how would you say this? She has become more serious, but she kind of tries to say, oh, it's great that there's so much history so close to us because they're from Los Angeles. Is that right?
Yeah.
And he'll just kind of gives her a, yeah. Well, anyway, and she walks away.
Because he just wants to get inside, but it's locked. And then another weird thing that he never really does. He doesn't do this kind of teasing thing very often.
It is weird.
He goes to the window and he's like, oh, look at that. Look at this. Well, let's not tell them what's in there because we want them to come in person.
Well, there's two things that he does then that are out of the ordinary. It's this to get you to go and see what's inside, which is for all we know, it's nothing. That'd be hilarious. But in Kernville, which we'll hear later, and we talk about a little later, he sort of reads an advertisement for the area to sell it. So that's just a little different.
Yeah.
Not bad, just different.
Yeah. Then Huell moves on to Jim Pete. He's the district superintendent of the park. And he's kind of explaining this special Amtrak route that they got set up here, which you looked into a little bit, right?
I did. I'm not 100% confident in this, but I saw a blog referring to, they call these flag stops.
Mm.
And this was, I think, last year. They were still saying that, Amtrak still makes a flag stop. So,
well, I know for a fact that this event still goes on because, as you'll hear soon, we went to do our location recording up in Kernville, and when I was doing research on this Allensworth event, turns out it was on the same day.
Yep.
So we just missed it by about a week. But
we could have done both, right? But it would have been about 5 hours of just driving.
Yeah. Plus, we would have been have to cut our time in half of each thing. Wouldn't have worked out. But it's cool that they have this Amtrak service, and they did then. They do now. We think and hope. But back then, there were some characters coming off this train,
dude. There was one lady, whose grandpa started the school.
Mm-hmm.
There was the next lady, who was the first and only first grader.
First grader.
She was the first grader. She was the first and only first. Well, she was the first grader, and she was the only first grader in that class.
Yeah.
Which is weird. And then we get to meet, toward the end here, the colonel's daughter.
Yeah.
Or sorry, granddaughter.
Was it? Yeah, it was granddaughter.
It was granddaughter, yeah.
And it's cool that they were able to get her to come out there because obviously she's not living in the town anymore. No one really does.
Right.
But it sounded like, because if you heard before, there were the ladies who came from L.A. on the bus. And that's another thing that still occurs now is that there are these bus services put on by it's different organizations each time where they'll bus up people who are interested in learning about the history to the site for that day. So, because it's pretty remote out there. I mean, you went out there.
Yeah, I mean, well, Huell refers to it as the flattest and most deserted.
Yeah.
And it's pretty out there.
So after the train gang, we have a short little interview with, I'm guessing he's a scout leader. He looks like he's 50 years old, the guy.
Yeah.
But he just gives a little tidbit about being excited about the history of the place, and then we're on to Don Murphy.
The docent.
And he's just the park director, and he's got more. A lot of these interviews are kind of just saying the same thing, but he's looking good in those shades. He's got the Ray-Bans, and then we're off to Palmer Avenue, which is cool. It's cool that they still kept the street names of everything, and then we get a close-up of. Did you notice that there's Huell's interviewing a woman with that shirt we were talking about, and he's like, "Oh, the nice shirt and everything," and then there's all these people playing that hand slap game. Does that have a name? Do you know? No. Like when girls on the playground will be beat about a beat and they're slapping each other's hands in some rhythmic motion.
No, I think I thought it was one of these things where you just make eye contact and you know what to do.
I remember having to come to my sister one day when we were kids and be like, "Hey, you got to teach me this thing. I know boys don't do it. We don't, but I want to know." And she told me the steps of how to do it.
Yeah.
And then I would secretly do it with her and the next door neighbor at home. But either way, Huell is not into it because he kind of just grabs her and pulls her away.
Yeah.
Because it seems like it's distracting him. And he even
he gives Louis the yeah, turn your body. Yeah. These are where the hand signals.
You need to turn this way as my hand is moving your head. Because if you notice, he's not doing oh, I'm holding a camera miming. He's doing I'm going to grab your head and turn it this way kind of hand motion.
Oh, man.
Which is funny because, again, if you read Louis' book, you hear that there were all these kind of unspoken signals that Huell would do.
Yeah.
Put a hand on someone's back and turn them in a certain way. And Louis kind of picked up on those over time. But here, obviously, Huell's Louis, turn your head this way.
Turn your entire body.
But then after that interview, we got Phil Hill. And
not F-E-E-L. Hill. It's P-H-I-L.
What? Yeah. Phil Hill. And he mentioned camping. He said he had camped there the night before.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah. He was the one who said that he had camped there.
But you never know with rangers. They probably get all these perks of camping in places you can't. He probably camped in the general store. We don't know.
That's his idea of camping, is just taking over the buildings. But you said that there's camping there still. Did you see that when you were out there?
Yeah, yeah.
What was it like?
I
mean,
it was pretty.
You can get an idea from just.
It wasn't like a campground, if I remember right. I remember it saying that you can camp there, and then I said, "Wow, I wonder who camps here."
Okay, so it's probably just a place that's sort of camping out of necessity,
sure,
maybe.
Like I said, maybe I didn't see the. Yeah. Or it's just something if you want to say you did it.
Well, there's a lot of people at this event. Like this last shot of Huell doing this interview here with this large group of people, you can kind of see between them, and there's, like makeshift easy ups, because I don't think easy ups existed back then, but something like that. And there's a lot of people here.
Yeah.
And there's not like hotels around there, right?
No. Doesn't Early Mart have a Hilton?
Yeah, sure. Delano has a Holiday Inn out there now, but not back then, I can't imagine.
No way.
But either way, we end up with old Ed Pope. And
dude, he hammers, like you said, well, the docent, actually, we forgot to mention, they both hammer home education for blacks.
Yeah, because it seemed, in the other research I was doing, it seemed like this was supposed to be kind of a intellectuals retreat of some sort.
It's like a training ground.
Yeah, because this was, Reconstruction era time. So it was a time that Allensworth wanted to have the, I guess, newly freed black population to be able to kind of figure out what comes next. Mm-hmm. And this is a pretty, he wanted solitude. I think that's what Ed was talking about. He wanted some solitude, and he got it.
I think he got it, yeah.
Yeah. Not far enough away, though, because there were still motorcycles.
Wait, he got killed in his, well, not his town, but the town he founded?
It doesn't say that specifically. It doesn't say where
crazy.
He was, but it definitely was an unfortunate... oh, no, it does. It says he was killed by a motorcyclist in Monrovia, California.
Oh, okay.
So, no, unfortunately, not even in his own town. Which, it doesn't really say either, how long exactly he lived there.
Right.
But how often do the namesakes of towns really... I mean, Colonel Thomas Baker lived here, but he wasn't even from here.
True. He's from Iowa, right?
Yeah, something like that. But that's kind of the end of this segment, no?
Yeah. I'm good with it.
Yeah. So we're definitely going to be changing gears here because we're actually doing some time traveling ourselves.
We are going to be traveling to not even just time traveling. We're going to be traveling from downtown Bakersfield.
Physically traveling, yeah.
To Kernville on the banks of the Kern River at Riverside Park.
Yeah. So last weekend, we pre-recorded a segment about Kernville in Kernville because it's one of our favorite places, like we said last week, and we thought, what better excuse do we need to go there?
We don't.
None excuses.
None. It was awesome. We went to the museum.
Yeah, the Kern Valley History Museum. And turns out that we just happened to stumble on their history days. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of people in period clothing, and weirdly enough, I don't know what went on there because we didn't ask because there doesn't seem to be anyone to ask. But there were children with fake head wounds.
Right. I thought there were unfortunate accidents.
Yeah, because they weren't in period clothes. They were just in normal everyday.
They just had period wounds.
I don't know what's happened. But we did get to see some guys in their period clothes. We talked to a couple of them. Nice guys. And what else did we do? Oh, we ate at one of our favorite places, Kern River Brewing Company. Shout out to them. And
it was just nice. It was
really nice weather, but the one thing that was happening that happens up there a lot is it was kind of windy. So you're going to hear that in this recording. We tried our best. Well, we had all kinds of problems.
Yeah, we didn't have any technical difficulties, did we?
I didn't want to bring it up, but we'll just do it just to warn people. So we both were recording our own audio tracks, and mine totally did not work.
So mine picked up, my audio track picked up your voice in the background.
Yeah.
But it's clear enough to hear.
And
or loud
also,
enough
like
to hear, I should
there
say.
were people walking by. Aaron and Kathleen were gabbing in the background. So you might hear lots of things, but it's still fun. You can tell that we were just relaxing on the banks of the Kern. And
Plan on doing that a lot more.
yeah, maybe not while we're recording our show, but
Nah, maybe not.
it was fun to do a location recording, but maybe we should make sure the equipment works next time.
Yeah, well
I should.
now
I guess.
we'll know now.
Hey man, it's a free podcast. What do you want? This isn't top-notch stuff. If you were paying a premium $9.99 kind of Netflix deal, we'd be making millions. We'd give you $1 million products.
We'd make at least $100.
Is that what you learned with that master's degree over there?
Dude, I'm telling you. Just put some numbers on a paper, some words on a paper. You get a degree out of it.
Okay. We'll see. Anyway, let's head to that segment, that time-traveling segment. And first off, we need to hear why Huell is up there, because it's a doozy. So, Huell, hit us up.
Now, just getting to our next town was an adventure. A windy Highway 178, which cuts through the southern tip of the High Sierra in Kern County. We're talking about rugged but beautiful terrain. That's the Kern River down there beside the road. And then suddenly we were out of the mountains, and there was Lake Isabella on the right. And then in just a couple of more miles, we had reached our destination, the small town of Kernville, nestled in the Kern River Valley. But this is where the plot thickens, because what we're looking at now is New Kernville. In fact, this town wasn't even here until the early 1950s. As we pulled into New Kernville, a delegation of local residents were waiting for us, not only to take us on a tour of New Kernville, but to take us to Old Kernville as well. That's right, there's a new and an old Kernville, although Old Kernville doesn't even exist anymore. Now, I know this sounds a little confusing, but to get to Old Kernville, which doesn't exist anymore, we got back in the car and drove 4 miles back down the highway to Lake Isabella, turned down a dusty road, and made our way through a huge grove of willows. We had arrived at Old Kernville. Founded back in the 1850s and originally known as Whiskey Flats, Kernville was a thriving little community of several hundred people. There were nice houses there. A Brown General Store was there, along with the Mountain Inn Hotel. The town was right on the river and had wide, tree-lined streets. It was a perfect place to live. The town even had its own permanent movie set, called Movie Town, and over 100 movies were filmed there over the years. It was famous. And then in the late 1940s, the government decided to build a dam and create present-day Lake Isabella. Only problem was the lake covered up the town, which meant the whole town, if it wanted to stay dry, had to move. People, pets, buildings, and all. Well, that's exactly what they did, though, moving over 35 structures from the old town to the site of the brand new town down the road. That was over 40 years ago. But today's drought conditions have caused the lake level to drop way down, and the site of Old Kernville, which has been covered for over 40 years, has now reappeared, which gave some locals who used to live there the opportunity to visit the old town site once again and reminisce.
Well,
Here we are.
Where are we?
We're in Kernville. Specifically Riverside Park, downtown Kernville. Exactly where the beginning of the shot starts. From the clip you just heard, Huell pulls into town, and we're right there.
A lot less buff, though.
Yeah. Maybe together we have as much muscle as Huell did there.
No.
No?
No. Well, all 4 arms
Equals one
equals
arm?
1 arm.
Okay.
So we'll go with that.
So, just to give you an idea of why we're doing this is one of both of our favorite places.
I love it here. Yeah.
I actually lived here when I was 5 years old. I went to kindergarten at Kernville Elementary School up the road. And it's just up the road from Bakersfield, so we came.
Yeah. It's very peaceful, too.
Yeah. But as you heard in the clip, Huell he starts off in New Kernville, which is where we are as well. Because Old Kernville is currently underwater in Lake Isabella.
Yeah, which I didn't really know much about this until you showed me. And we, what was it? There was something sticking out of the water. What was that? Was it just a few different structures?
It was a chimney.
Chimney, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
There is a spot where you can see a chimney that's all that's left of a place that once was in Old Kernville. And you heard in the clip about the moving of the structures and all that went on with that. And that's all I've ever known is Lake Isabella, because it happened in the 50s, like Huell said. And my parents remember it prior to that. And it seemed like it was a pretty controversial thing back in the day.
Well, yeah, I mean, someone takes your city, or hey, we're going to destroy your city, so you're going to need to move it.
Yeah.
It's probably, I think, ruffles some feathers, but
as far as the actual segment here, after Huell starts off in New Kernville, he meets up with a couple old locals where he's in very esteemed company, because not only are these old residents of Old Kernville, he's with none other than Bob Powers.
This is the man, the myth, the history legend.
Yeah, he's a cowboy historian. He's written a number, I think close to like 8 or 9 books on this area, including the structures, the people, the Native Americans, prior to any sort of contact by Europeans.
You have some rare copies of his books,
I have
right?
one
Don't you have
original-
North Fork?
Yeah, I have original North Fork, and then I bought the Sabasalabo Indians one at the museum, just down the street here.
Which we may head to after we do this bit, right?
Yeah, everyone should, because it is a pretty fun museum. They got a lot of cool old stuff, including a little memorial plaque of Bob out front.
We got to do it.
Yeah, we're going to do it.
Okay.
So Huell meets with them over downtown, and then they head on the road to Old Kernville, which right off the bat, he's talking to Bob. So if you're watching along, that's the first person you see is Bob. And Huell just pushes him out of the way because he wants to talk to, who was that?
That's Harvey Malone and Clint James.
Yes.
The 2 jokers.
Yeah, because they went to the school, which is what we're seeing now. It's the foundation of the old schoolhouse.
And they tell the story, right, of how, was it Clint? How he conked his head?
He put a dent in a 3/4 inch steel pipe. Haven't been the same since. But did you notice that when they switch over to Harvey, he kind of just pushes Bob into the bush?
Yeah.
And then Bob's like, getting bugs on him and stuff. Don't they know this is historical royalty?
Didn't care less. Well, they wanted to tell his skinny dipping story.
That's what I was going to say. Because there's a spot in the river that was kind of almost like a ford where it was really, really shallow, and I guess that was the skinny dipping spot.
I guess so. Well.
But Bob is kind of the one who knows a lot about the actual geography of the place, and he gives a little lesson on where the Methodist Church was, which is at this point still there. Which we should go drive by it.
Yeah, we'll do that. I think what was cool is how they were walking through the streets, and Huell mentions this is like a jungle, which I mean, probably not the best way to describe it, but It is. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Wild fauna.
Fauna, yeah. Terra firma.
But the next person that Huell talks to is
Is it
lady?
Adeline?
Yeah, Adeline, who is Marvin's wife, I think.
I think so, yeah, but what was the first thing she said?
About the telephones?
Yeah.
Yeah, how people would listen in on the telephone calls?
Yeah, she was old Sneaky Pete over there.
That's totally not legal as far as I'm concerned.
Well, the one thing that she says, how when Huell sees her laughing, she says, "You hit the nail right on the head." Yeah. So, but yeah, it's a pretty quick segment, but it's cool that he got to talk to Bob Powers. That's the coolest part of it.
Because I remember when I first watched this episode a couple years back, when the Chapman archives, I first became aware of them. That this was one of the first episodes I wanted to see because, like I said, I grew up here for a bit. My family has been coming up here for years and years, still does. And as soon as I saw that name, I was flipping.
Yeah.
Because that's the man. Like, I've only ever seen still pictures of him. I didn't know there was a video.
He's fairly, an amateur historian, he's fairly prolific.
Yeah.
You've already mentioned, 8 books?
8 or 9 or something, yeah. All of them are still available because there were limited pressings back in the 70s and 80s when he was doing these. And then he's since passed for a while now.
Yeah.
But his wife has kind of taken over his mantle a bit and had all of his books reprinted with glossy pictures and dust jackets, and they look even better than the originals.
That's awesome.
I'm kind of a first printing kind of guy, but
oh yeah,
I like those. The new ones, they're just so much better looking.
Yeah. Well, that's the interesting part, and he only spends about 25 seconds on New Kernville. Yeah. not quite as impressed, although we love it here, and
there's a lot of history here too that Huell obviously didn't have time for,
right.
Whatever, because the bridge that we're looking at that's right on the side of the park, on Riverside Park, it's a concrete bridge now, but it used to be wooden, and it washed out, I think, at least 2 times that I knew about from family stories and whatnot. And we're looking, look at this bridge right here.
Yeah.
Think about the river being that high. It's so gnarly to think of. This is the killer Kern. You heard us talk about it a while ago that a number of people just last year passed away in the river.
Yeah. I think it was 10 or 13, I don't remember, but it was in the double digits.
And we're at the park, at Riverside Park, right, looking at the river, and just look at, I wouldn't get this.
No.
I did as a kid.
Well, I was telling you about my mom, because, the Kern River obviously flows through Bakersfield, and she attributed the killer Kern to every aspect of the river. So even the 3 foot deep at Hart Park?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, I couldn't get in as a kid. No. Because the undertow would take you, and as far as she was concerned, it would take me back up into Kernville.
How that works.
I know. So, Mom, it's not like you're not like the trout, right? But if there is, I was thinking about this when I was noticing Huell's guns, especially at the end, that if there's one person that I would say, you know what? He might be able to swim against the current.
Well, no, it's funny you mention that because I went and I went back to Louis' book to see what he had to say about this episode. And he said that his swimming prowess, that's not how he worded it. He said his strong swimming came in handy because he had to get in the river to get those shots of Huell in the raft he was in. Which that raft, which I guess we can just move on to that last bit.
Yeah, because that's really, to be honest, the history is really cool, but this is equally as cool, seeing Huell's face.
Looking at old foundations, you have to use your imagination, but the last bit.
Are you talking about the splash yaks?
Yeah. But there's actually a part I want to cut to a clip right now. Have Huell talk about the Kern River Valley, and then we'll come back.
All right, let's do it.
Huell, hit it.
Now, as we end this particular episode, I would also advise you to put on your life preservers, because we still have one more adventure left, and it's a wet one. Now, the Kern River Valley just might be Southern California's best-kept secret. It's surrounded by Sequoia National Forest with over 1 million acres of unspoiled beauty. And if you like outdoor adventure, you can choose fishing or boating on Lake Isabella, kayaking on the Kern River, mountain biking through some of the most rugged and beautiful terrain you can imagine. Or you can even climb rocks if you want to. And all that's in addition to camping, hiking, and skiing. But I chose to end my visit to the area by spending the afternoon rafting the white water of the Kern River, which has to be one of life's great thrills.
All right.
Yep. So as you heard, Huell's kind of talking up the Kern River Valley, talking about how great it is, and he ain't lying. Like, this is world-class outdoor activity area.
It sounds like an advertisement.
It was,
Like, I thought he was paid by the
the Chamber
whatever.
of Commerce.
Yeah,
right?
something.
Well, it's funny because we're sitting at the park, and you asked me as soon as we got out of the car, what this big cable run? There's a couple of them that are strung across the river here, and I just happen to know because I asked these questions of my grandpa when I would come here. And what they do is they hang poles down into the river, and those poles are what kayakers who are training for the Olympics use to navigate this river, because this is one of the, most dangerous natural bodies of water.
Right.
That has a long stretch that these kayakers can use to practice. So, right off the bat, world-class kayaking. As you heard about the bike trails, the mountain biking, or the mountain climbing, rather. All that stuff.
Oh, speaking of rafting, look at some rafters coming through right now.
Well, in the clip, or not the clip, but the little intro segment that he does for this part, when Huell's at the, waiting in front of the splash yak, there's a group of rafters who come through. And did you notice they all slap the water?
Yeah, it was cool. It was almost like a salute.
Yeah.
Salute slap.
I've seen that happen out here. I think that's their woohoo, we made it, dude.
Well, so we get to see Chuck Reynolds.
Richards.
Chuck Richards.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't read my handwriting. There you go. Chuck Richards.
Dang, yeah, you shlamied that.
I did. I was writing really quickly. So, of Whitewater Inc.
Yeah.
And did you notice how he described his splash yaks?
What did he say? I don't remember.
He said, well, once you snuggle your hind in the bottom.
Snuggle your hiney right in there.
So that was the highlight of that interview for me.
Yeah. Chuck Richards is still around. I don't know if the person is still around, but his company still is. He owns the Falling Water Resort just up the river some.
Uh-huh.
And he still runs rafting trips. Maybe this is old Chuck.
See, I've never been rafting. I think we should do that this summer.
I haven't either. All the years I've been up here, I've fished every square inch of this river. And I see him constantly, and I know it can be scary.
Yeah, but
there are parts when you look into rafting here, there are beginner parts where you got to be a real dingus to boof that up.
Right.
But it does look fun.
It does. I mean, you can go to yeah. I mean, Huell looks like he's having a blast. Those slow-mo shots of his face. Look, I even drew it. So, but imagine coming out here, whatever you're doing. I mean, if you're going to come, you can raft. Maybe we can do a Huell's Gold meetup here and go to Kern River Brew.
You're darn right.
That'd
Kern
be
River
fun.
Brewing, a little plug there. Kern River Brewing Company, world-renowned microbrew out of here, also has killer food.
And killer root beer.
Yes.
That's what I'm in for. So, you could do that, or we could tell them about whiskey flat days too.
Yes. There, as you heard in the clip at the beginning of the segment, Kernville used to be called Whiskey Flat, and they commemorate that kind of point in pioneer history every year here during the Whiskey Flat Days, which is a parade which Huell probably would have stopped.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone on that one. And I don't know if it's still this way, but as a kid, when I was like killer to me because everyone was just throwing candy at the kids from the float.
Just at them? Like not on the ground, just at them? Into the
They would
ground?
try and reach it to us, but yeah, half of it would get on the ground.
Maybe there's a candy cannon now.
Like
Just
a
shoot it.
teacher I haven't been to a parade in years though. Like, do they still do that?
Well, I don't. Probably I was in a parade in middle school. I was the mascot for the Walter Stern Middle School. You didn't know this?
No.
Yeah, it was the shark.
Like in the suit?
In the suit, yeah.
What did you do? Like, what did you have to do?
Just throw candy.
Were you dancing around or anything?
You kind of just wiggled. You threw some. I'll show you my yearbook.
Okay.
Because I'm in with the cheerleaders and the band. Like I got to be in two different sections, and my stupid face is just.
Was there like a big head that you would wear?
Yeah, so it went straight up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I remember because my mom bought me these shoes. I said, "Mom, I need slip-on white shoes."
Yeah.
For whatever reason, not like Pee Wee Herman, but just like slip-on. She goes and gets me some. They're a step down from LA Gears from Payless, and I was so embarrassed to wear them. So I'm not wearing these.
San Fernando gear? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't remember the name, but yeah, I was a mascot. So there you go.
All right. Well,
we did it.
Okay, so that was the point at which we realized that my recorder had not worked at all. So it kind of petered off there for a second, but that was the end of the segment. We had gotten to the point there where we felt like, all right, we're in Kernville. It's time to really enjoy it. Stop recording this crazy show, and let's go eat some smashed potatoes.
And we almost got on a raft ourselves. Because if you watch the slow-mo of Huell being excited, you notice that he is wearing jeans.
It's like they couldn't give him a pair of trunks up there? Okay, if you remember, at my bachelor party up in Kernville where we were, I also, for some reason, didn't bring swim trunks. And so I had to go up to the Sierra Gateway Market, which is actually the James store. The James store was the store that was talked about by Clint James. He was one of the men down there talking about Old Time Kernville.
Yeah.
I don't know if they moved the store or if they made a new store, but it's been around since back then. We always called it the James store, even though it stopped being so for a long time. But yeah, I bought some swim trunks up there, and then we floated in the river.
That was fun.
Yeah, well, it was fun for everyone except you, because you didn't want to ruin your special shorts you had on. So you sat in a rock and watched us.
Well, but I did. It was daring, right? I jumped from the shore onto a rock.
Okay.
So that's it. And
it
was
get,
cold.
No,
and
wait.
It was cold.
No. I get it now. Your mom didn't let you in the river. You were still holding true to what your mom told you.
I think that's just really deep. Yeah, I can't go in.
Even though it was only like 4 feet.
But did you know they found a kid who got trapped under a shopping cart?
You know, I did like scrape the heck out of my knees in that river though. So I guess you were right. Who am I to judge?
Hey, I got some really good pictures though.
Yeah.
So there you go. Had to be the photographer.
That is before we lost Ruben for 2 hours. This is the kind of fun you can have on the river. You can.
And then we ate. Well, Andrew was pretty good about baking cornbread in a cast iron skillet, except for that night, apparently, because every bite, even what wasn't burnt, tasted charred. It was the weirdest thing.
It was amazing, yeah.
Anyway.
This is the kind of fun you can have on the Kern River, as you heard from the commercial that Huell did earlier. It's a fun place. That's why we went up there. And Huell goes up there again in a few years. We'll go up there again, have some good times, watch some birds.
All right, well, let's book our camping trip up there for the fall.
Sweet. But until then, we just hope that you come along with us next time as we continue our search together for Huell's Gold.
California, here I come, right back where I started from. Where flowers of flowers bloom Every morning,